All right, so 10 methods to differentiate yourself from other candidates in a job interview. Number 1, prepare answers to most commonly asked questions well in advance. And I do have actually a list of most commonly asked questions for many high-performing companies, but as well as, generally speaking, what are companies nowadays asking the most in job interviews. And I'll ensure that I'll link the video in the video description. Number 2, you should role play. You should not only prepare written answers to most commonly asked questions or to prepare in a passive way, but prepare in an active way. So find someone to role play with, because this does make the difference. And this is, truth be said, this is actually a service that sells quite well. So consider role-playing answers with someone, especially when preparing for an on-site interview, but also for a telephone screening interview. Number 3, focus on your strengths. So, needless to say, first of all, what are your strengths? Define your strengths, know your weaknesses, but intentionally focus on your strengths throughout the interview. And this is advice from HR people, that more often than not, candidates refuse to focus on their strengths during job interviews, but give rather generic answers. So by focusing on your strengths, you can differentiate yourself from other people applying for the same job. Number 4, have a positive attitude in your answers. And there are 2 parts of this. The first part is that at some points in time, people tend to be too negative, especially towards the end of their answers. They tend to add one extra sentence that's not necessary there. That's usually on a downwards on a downwards path. To give an example here, if you'd have to answer about the time when you had your most successful project, you would say, hey, yes, I worked on this project 3 years ago. It was very successful. Me and my team delivered everything on time, and the result was that we made $1 million in profit. But then it ended up failing because some team member got disengaged in the process, and he was the key member and he didn't work out. So notice how this last sentence kills your show, kills your answer. So this is what you want to avoid at all costs, to be positive throughout the conversation, and especially towards the end of the conversation, as I highlighted previously. The second point about positivity is there are positive and there are negative questions in an interview. There's tell me about the time when you failed, which is an obvious negative question, but there's also questions that look like negative, but in fact they're positive. Tell me about the time when you took on a big risk, right? So it doesn't ask you, tell me about the time when you took on a big risk and failed. No, it asks you, tell me about the time when you took on a big risk. So your answer should be a positive one here, simply put. So just be careful that you are positive throughout the conversation, and you recognize when you have to be more negative, such as in a failure story. And even so, in a failure story, you end with learnings which are positive again. Number 5, spend time, take your time to prepare questions for them during an interview. More often than not, these questions, these comes up during the last 10 minutes of the conversation, but still, they play an important role at times in these exchanges, and questions for them, both for the telephone screening rounds as well as for the on-site screening rounds. I'll link a video, I'll link more content in the video description if you need some ideas, as I'm sure I've covered in previous videos. Number 6, tell them that you really want the job. And I know I just scared many of the people in my audience here, but more often than not, this makes sense, especially for people that work in IT, that cannot really look all that engaged in a conversation, cannot really transmit the feelings that they want to transmit. So by being straightforward that I really want this job, you again differentiate yourself from other candidates applying for the same role. Number 7, somewhat linked with the previous one, put together a great show. If you manage to keep the interviewer engaged in the conversation and you are to the point, you give great examples, there's no better formula for success in a job interview. So in other words, if you just give great answers but you look disengaged, it's not as good as if you have a positive attitude, you show energy, and you essentially put together a great show. So keep this in mind, put together a great show. This will help you to, again, differentiate yourself from other candidates. Number 8, be concise. No one wants to hear you talking over and over again for 5 minutes straight for a question, for an answer that could have been said in 1.5 minutes, which is actually what I recommend in most cases. Still, the main thing when giving an answer to a question is to transmit the idea that you want to transmit, to communicate it properly. If that takes 3 minutes, so be it. But still, the idea, the main focus here would be to communicate the idea that you want to transmit, and then to be concise. Right, so if you want to differentiate yourself from other people applying for the same job, you must be concise as well. Not only give a strong answer that makes sense, but also communicate it concisely. Number 9, smile. It's that simple. Smile from time to time. It helps, and if you train yourself to remember yourself to smile from time to time, I'm sure it will make a positive impact throughout the interview, especially for IT roles, but not only for IT roles. I'm talking about IT because I know that other roles, like people roles, people tend to have this attitude anyway. And number 10, be cautiously optimistic. Like, I know that number 9 was to smile, but I believe the overall attitude in the job interview is to be cautiously optimistic, simply because if you give it all away, the interviewer is not only looking for your strong points, but also for your weak points, and also for certain biases that might be against their company's culture, so they might trigger some question marks. So by being cautiously optimistic, you transmit only the information that you want to transmit. By being relaxed, you tend to give it away and to give away more information than you would otherwise, you would normally feel comfortable giving. So this is, again, another way you could differentiate from other candidates, by being cautiously optimistic. If other candidates are all smiles and they have a very relaxed attitude overall, they will inevitably give away too much information. If you are cautiously optimistic, chances are you're going to score much better in overall throughout the interviewing process. So there you go. These were my 10 tips on how can you differentiate yourself from other candidates in a job interview. So hopefully you found some information useful from these points. And if you want to support this channel, please feel free to share your interview outcomes in the comment sections of the video. Thank you.